I played with my friends in a game of swings. I felt like I was a fairy when I wrapped a towel around my waist and wore a bandana. As the wind gently pushes the swing made out of a colorful rope high into the sky, the trinkets rattle loudly as the summer heat shimmers over the lush green willow tree. This is a poem that was written by the famous female poet Honan Sarhon when she was still a young girl. She was highly regarded by Chinese and Japanese literary figures. Nansaron was born in a noble family that was famous for producing many famous literary figures in the Joseon dynasty. This is a place where she was born and pursued her dreams. Her father, Hoyop, was a poor but honest scholar and was admired by many people. Nansaron was born in Chodang village, which got its namesake from her father's nickname, which was Chodang. Chodang means a home made out of straw. Since Hoyop lived a simple and humble life, the villagers who revered him called their village after his nickname. Unlike the houses owned by other high-ranking officials, Hoyop's home was surrounded by a low fence that showed his desire to foster communication with his neighbors. His home embodied openness, and he welcomed any visitor who wished to look around the house. Hoyop's open-minded personality was also reflected in how he designed his house. The Newedam wall, which is located right in front of the door and leads to the Anche, was designed to be very low in his house. In that period, people would normally build the wall to be as tall as possible and block anyone from getting a direct view of the Anche. The wall was so low in Hoyop's home that the women folk who stayed in the Anche could see who were in this Harangche. Honan Saron was raised in a family that was very open-minded, and she grew to become very curious about the world around her and formed her own views about what she saw. Hoyop knew that Nansaran was a gifted child, and he had Songok Idal, the most famous writer in that period, to teach his young daughter how to write poems. It was unprecedented to teach women how to read and write during the Joseon period. Hoyop wanted to be able to openly talk with any person, no matter what their social position was. He even ordered that the walls surrounding the Anche, where his womenfolk lived, to be built as low as possible so that it could foster more openness. When the sun was up, or when there was a full moon, light would always reach every corner of the house. The house itself embodied a positive and forward-thinking perspective. The home was a radically designed building during the Joseon dynasty. The height of the Sarangche, where the head of the house lived in, and the Anche, where the womenfolk stayed, were the same, unlike the high-ranking officials' homes. Hoyop believed that society should treat everyone equally, and his beliefs were reflected in the design of his home. In Nansaran's childhood days, the boys and girls were treated equally in her family. In her childhood home, there were many doors that connected the Anche to the Sarangche. These little details showed how much her family valued open discussion and harmony. There was more individual space for the women in the house than other homes. The door leading to the anche is designed differently. The anche in this home gives the women enough individual space and privacy. And it is said that this is where Nansaron began to develop her individuality. Nansaron. She gave herself her own nickname, which meant a house where a snow-covered orchid grows. Nansaron came up with a name that embodied her ideal home. That was her dream. Nansaron metaphorically described herself as a lonely bird perched on a lotus flower. Her life was very miserable. Since her husband did not approve of her literary pursuits, she led a very lonely life. Throughout her childhood, Nansaron was raised in an open-minded family, but she eventually died when she was only 27 years old. Before she died, Nansaron wrote a will asking that all of her writings be burned. But her younger brother, Hogyun, thought it would be a great loss if her works were destroyed, so he rushed to his brother-in-law's home and collected as many of her works as he could. Later, he published a collection of her poems called Nansaron Jip, based on the works that he retrieved, as well as her unwritten poems that he memorized by heart. Hogyun shared Nansaron's poems with Chinese poets, and 1 century later, her poems were published in Japan as well. Chinese and Japanese literary figures showered praise on the works of Nansaron. At the age of 23, she wrote a poem predicting when she would die. The blue ocean water glistens in the shining ocean, and the blue Nansei bird leans on the brightly colored Nansei bird. 27 beautiful lotus flowers. The cold frost turns them red, and they wilt.